fitting to do the old round the corner cab here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the old cab corner. Here it is here. This started life as a great big. Now, one of the things, one of the rib that I wanted to. Everything's an opinion. Everybody's got an opinion. The whole world's based on opinions, and here's mine. On how come you probably should not a lap weld. Now, a lot of stuff is lap. Now, if you don't know what a lap weld means, is you take your piece. Here's your truck. Put your panel on here. You weld around her, and it's overlapped here. So that's your lap weld. Yeah. Now, that's the easiest way to weld this kind of stuff on account. I mean, for one reason is your panel underneath is giving you some strength on your panel on top. So that's going to help you control the warpage from your welding because, you know, you're twice as thick, right? However, that's the reason that I don't like this is because, number one, you got a whole lot of body work you got to do here to try to make this nice. Because you got to take this extra thickness and you got to fake it out. You got to fake it. You got to fake it out. You know what I'm saying? Fillers and shit. So you're going to wind up with quite a bit because chances you coming straight off of this and going up and only having your 32nd of an inch of filler or whatever there, it's pretty slim. It ain't going to happen. You're going to start down here and you're going to have it's going to get away on you is what's going to happen. So that's a bummer. But number two, and this is a bigger thing, I had a felt. What did I do with it? Anybody? Where is it? Ooh, there it is. Here, I'll draw you a picture. Is that it? Oh no, that's a hole in my pocket. What the hell did I do with my felt? There it is. Now here's the thing that I've seen fail most common in my brief experience in doing this. So here's your panel. This is your cab, right? And coming up here, this is your cab corner that you're putting on that you're lap welding, right? And you're over top. So there you got your thickness. And here, there's your weld. Are you following me so far? So now when you grind this down, because you're going to have to grind your weld down, right? So when you grind this down now, here's our cab again. Here's our panel that we've welded on, and we've ground our weld down. Now, when you're grinding your weld down, I don't know that I've ever seen anybody who can just grind that weld down and get her just skating right off the edge of this panel and get her perfect. You know what I mean? And only have the thickness of this panel left in weld there. Because that's not what you're going to try to do in your mind. That's not what you're going to try to do. You're going to try to make this as smooth as you possibly can to give you less finish work. Yeah? So what you're going to wind up doing is you're going to take quite a bit off of there in this picture here. So you're going to, chances are really good, better than 13%, that you're going to start knife edging this panel off because you're going to grind your weld off, right, or weld. You're going to grind your weld off and you're going to keep on going. And you're going to wind up knife edging this panel a little bit. So your weld that's right on the edge of this panel, well, you got very little weld left there because this panel is only that thick. See how thick that is? That's not very thick. So that's not very much weld. And if you're lap welding, you're not getting a whole shitload of penetration going through this panel. And even if you do, it ain't going to matter, and I'll explain why. So once you're done, you got to worry in this, and you got it as smooth as you're surprised how nice and smooth you got that. Well, the chances are pretty good. Now, if we look at this, I don't know, in a different light. So let's look at it this way. So here's your panel you're welding to. Here's your panel you've welded onto it, and you've knife edged that weld off there. So it feels nice and smooth. Now you're super thin right here. Your weld was here. You're not really paying attention here. So you are so damn thin here, and I've seen it before where it'll crack. This panel here will crack along that edge because your weld is here and you've just knife edged it there, and it'll crack. It'll just crack. I've seen it lots of times. I have seen it most times when I see it rear its ugly pimple-faced keister is if you see sometimes a crack in filler work, or sometimes you will see a blister in the filler work, and that's because that's cracked. It's sacrificed in behind, and now contaminants and stuff have come through and they've blistered the filler work on top. So that's a bummer. And secondly, when you're grinding her off of here, you're taking metal out of here. Like if you're grinding a weld along here, your grinder is hitting here on this panel. So you're also taking away from your whatever, your substrate panel, your cab panel, your whatever. You're grinding your weld off here. You're not taking a whole bunch of the cab corner off. You're grinding that weld off. But up here above that weld, you're grinding a trough into this panel as well. So you're taking a whole bunch of the steel out of there as well. Most times I have seen where people, you know, they'll lap weld something on there and they'll leave quite a bit of weld on there. And you know that's what you're coming into if you're cleaning all that shit off of there, because there's a 1/2 inch of body filler involved. Because they got a speed bump there that they got to, like I said, you got to start filling here and you got to stop filling up there by the time you try to fake it out. And even after you do all that faking out, quite often it looks like shit anyways. So that's one of the reasons for that. Now, if you butt weld something, so a butt weld would be if you're fitting up here and you got a gap. See now, touching it like that, don't weld like that. Leave a little gap. A lot of people will say at least the width of your wire. I guess depending on how big your wire is. But you want to leave a little bit of a gap for your weld to go through and penetrate to the back side of it. And so then when you're grinding it, so now you can get it pretty flush on the outside, but you still have at least your metal thickness of weld there that's still holding you together, and you've still got the integrity of it. And with a butt weld like this, you're going to wind up with some weld on the back side of the panel. You're going to wind up with a little bead of weld on the inside. And if you leave that, well, then that's going to give you a little more strength, because when you're welding this stuff, it does change the metal when you weld it. It's like I've said before, you're disturbing the molecules in the steel, that when they recollect, they hug, everybody's little group hugs a little bit tighter, and it makes it a little more brittle, and it's a little harder. So, I mean, where you run into the problems when you're butt welding and when you're lap welding, if you weld it too thin, by the time you're done welding everything, it's under some stress on there. It doesn't matter how nicely you laid your panel up there. By the time you're done welding it and your weld shrinks, you've put some stress into that panel. So then if you get too thin where you've been grinding or where you've been working one panel to the other and it's under stress, well, it's pulling even harder, and that's just more avenue for something to happen. Sometimes, you know, absolutely, without question, I have cleaned work off of a car that's probably 20, 30 years old. And it's lap welded, and it's brazed, and it's soldered, and it's riveted, and it's whatever. And in that instance, they got really lucky because absolutely nothing is festered up and it looks fine. There's been other times that, I mean, you know exactly what you're going to get before you get in there, because you can see by looking at the painted surface, you can see the bondo, the body filler bubbling around it, so you know, and you see it in a stripe around it, well, you know there's a weld there that's got a problem. It's either, somebody's phoning. It's either brass that it's letting go from because brass sweats and has contaminants in it, or, you know, it's something around their weld or something that's let go and is a bummer. It's going to be one where, you know, it's, but like I say, I've seen it before where it's lasted quite a while. So I'm going to do this here cab corner, and I'm going to butt weld it in. So there, stick it. So a little handy dandy gizmo that you can pick up that might aid in your lap welding adventures if you want to do it. Place, right, is one of these guys. Okay, you see the shape of that, the way that's stepped? Now the whole idea behind that, well here, I can show you. Let's get a hairline. There's a hunk of steel. There's one. So the way these things work, if you ain't got one, if you've never seen one, or if you bought one and you haven't used it yet, I have this because on the other side of it is a hole punch. So I use the hole punch for when I'm doing stuff, punching holes in stuff. If that makes any sense to you? So this guy here, the stamp side, so you give her one of these, give her one of these, here, you give her one more of those. Here, let's go it again. Ah, let's finish her off, eh? Alright, alright, alright. Shut up, you leaky son of a bitch. Oh, so now what that's done for you is it's stamped, I don't know what's a good angle for you. It's stamped a bevel into it. See our shape? So then now when you're welding your new panel on, but what you would do is you would do this, in this instance, to our cab corner. So now we would have a step down, and then, where's another hunk of steel? Oh! So then we would have a step down, right, that we just did there, and then if this was our rust piece that we would take, we would lay that into that area there, and what you got there is now you're pretty much flush. So, and then, you know, you want to leave her spaced down a little bit, so then you got a little trough there to put your weld in, and then when you grind it, right, you're flush. So that's dandy, as long as you're on a flat panel, because this guy, I mean, that ain't gonna do it. It doesn't work around corners. It's got to be flat. The only place that step down works is on a flat. As soon as you start getting into a corner, well, if you pull that trigger, it's going to try to straighten that corner out. You know what I'm saying to you? And that's not what you're talking about. That's not what you're working with. So I want to, what I'm getting at here, if I'll quit stammering and just get to the some of my bitch point, is I'm gonna weld this. I'm gonna weld this right in the butt. Is what's going on. So the way I do it, when I do how I'm gonna do what I do when I'm gonna do it, you know what I'm saying? Is I like to, whenever possible, woo, look at that, hey? Holy jumping jihad. Nice work, boys. What was I talking about? Yeah, bastard son of a... I'll cut them through both at once. That's the road I'm going down here. We're kind of meandering down the road, but I mean at the end of the road. So when they don't fit good, and I want to do that, what I'll do is I'll give them some clamping here and there. Kind of scared to release this one because we're under a little bit of duress. So we're good. We want to be there, and you can tell that. I mean, this line's going down here, and this line here is just barely above that coive. So anyways, I'll get her fitting pretty good to where I like it. And then I'm going to put a couple of tack welds on it, which will hold that in place. And then I will come down, because like I said, I know that we're here. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to cut a little bit above that. Cha. So in closing, I would like to present to you what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not done the other side yet because they don't make these stinking cab corners big enough to fix all the rust that you get on the back side of the cab. Why not? Huh? So anyways, so when you do it like this, like as you can see, well, actually you can't really see. I apologize for that, but that's the way she goes because that's the way she goes. But we don't got a big lip that we got to deal with. It's pretty flush. It's pretty flat. And now, as I said before, here we'll show you here. Let's get a little light on the subject. So it's kind of hard to see down in there, but you see how it looks all shitty like and all, you know, whatever. I don't know how to explain that. That's the weld coming through the gap, the space in between the two panels. I can show you better here. Now this piece, I welded that from the bottom. from the other side. So that is how much weld soaks through to this side. So you're able to, on the bottom side of that, you can grind that right flush and you still have all that weld on the back side that's strengthening the joint. For the people that say that it's going to crack and fall apart because it's too thin, well, you still got half your weld is on the inside. They don't tell you that kind of stuff. And I just find in a lot of areas, it's easier. Like everything that I've done in this truck, I've welded everything. See, there's another case. I welded that. That weld is on the firewall side of the cab. And that's how much of the weld bleeds through. Well, you can tell because there's a piece of wire poking through. Because I haven't cleaned it up too much yet. But yeah, that's how much of the weld winds up coming through to give you your strength. See, and there's even more up there on the firewall. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Holy hell, it's everywhere. But anyways, ooh, this is a neat little light. I'm turning into a flashlight hoarder. Hey, look at that little guy. That's a little pip, that little fella. And he's magnetic. Hey, that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Anyways, like I'm saying, that's why you should do that. So if you watched up to this point, you're better for it.